All right. Hey, welcome everybody back to Not for Sunday Mornings. My name is Steve, and I'm here with my good friend Christopher.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, this is a good week. This week, Chris got to speak this week, and he spoke about. Who did you speak about? Elijah.
Elijah. I could tell you listen.
No, I did.
You did. You sat there both sermons.
I took notes.
You
I
did.
had
I
notes.
watched you. I saw
took
you.
Notes. I think I do that. I like to sit in both.
Yeah.
No, I took notes, and I was thinking about next week and the week. I was thinking of Gideon the week before.
Oh
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, where are we
a
at?
few weeks
Like,
back. Yep.
Yeah. We're talking about Elijah. So
Yeah. So yeah, Elijah.
it was a fun sermon.
I liked it. It was hard to write, like, because I had just come back off vacation, so I didn't even start. And normally, I try to start that Monday. And
Normally you start 2 months before, but
well, this is going to be part of our conversation today because it meshes with Elijah and Elijah's my last one for the summer.
yeah, you're for the year. It looks like.
Well, I don't know. That's probably because what does this
I
put
looked
me
at
at?
the
Is
calendar
this
and
like
I'm-
7 for me?
I looked
this
at the
year?
calendar and I'm like, you're done for the year. And
Yeah, I think I've done my quota.
I'm on a run now. So
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
back, baby.
We talked about how few you had done this year.
I know.
And that's not a knock; it's just a reality. Like,
yeah,
but yeah. So yeah, Elijah was my last one. So I didn't start till Wednesday,
wow.
and I know. See, that's what I'm saying. I started late, and so it was rough. It was actually probably, I think, one of the hardest ones for me to write. I don't know why per se, but it was a difficult one. So
That's a great story.
It is. And I said it's my favorite. It really is. Like, I love the story of Gideon, but the story of Elijah is just amazing. And there's so much cool stuff to talk about with him. And
So I got some things I liked, and then I have some questions, and I don't know how you want to do this.
However you want to do it, I'm down. I've got some notes of stuff I definitely left out. So.
Okay. Yeah, that was good. I like the line where you said you need to learn how to listen differently.
Mm-hmm.
So that was neat. That's the thing I'm working on, is how to listen differently.
Mm-hmm.
I liked what you said. God came to him like he was a wounded child, not like a soldier, which I thought was a neat. You had another word in front of soldier, but I didn't catch it.
Disappointing
soldier. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, so that was a neat line too. I liked you said he's just as present in the mountain as the cave, which I thought was neat, because on the mountain he's so loud and like, whoa, and in the cave he's still there, just different.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea of proving versus knowing God, and how the fire was about proving God and the whisper was about knowing God. Now that was a neat, just a neat like 1-2 punch there. That was what I really liked.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was good. Do you want to do some questions for me, or do you want me to just go
you
on
want me to
what
go?
I got?
Yeah. I got questions if you're ready.
Well, let me toss this out. So when it comes to writing, right? Like, and you do this regularly, and I don't. And so, but what I've learned as I've written, and it was dumb because I left you Saturday, and I'm like, I'm done. Here it is. I turned in my assignment and said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I went home and I went out to dinner with like my wife and kid, and when the other one was somewhere, I don't know where she was at. But anyway, so we went out to eat, and I'm sitting there, and it was stupid because in my brain, like, the sermon just kept going over in my brain, like I was just thinking on it. I kept dwelling on it, and then it hit me that I left out the most obvious stuff. And it was like, because you read these verses so much that they do. And there's a reality to this. We're told to hide the gospel in our heart, right? Like, we should know this gospel inside and out, everything about it. And so it only comes when you read it repetitively. And so, like, for 4 days straight, Wednesday to, I've read it tons of times before, but there's a difference between reading it and studying it.
Yeah.
And so for 4 days straight, I'm going over these verses in my head, and I'm just, and as I'm going through them, reading them, typing them up, all that kind of stuff, we're going back over them. What am I missing? And silence. I know silence was a theme in mine, but I left out all the points of silence in the entire story except for the Mount Horeb science stuff. So when you read it, when you go back and you look at the original on the Mount Carmel. When
Every time you were saying that on Sunday too, I kept thinking of caramel.
Well, I thought that too, because when I left the word mount off of the front, I'm like, you could forget about caramel. I'm like, So it's in chapter 18, and Elijah is on the mountain. All the Israelites are gathered up there, and he puts that statement out there. How long will you hesitate between two opinions?
Yeah.
If Yahweh is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him. But the people did not answer a word. Silence. There's silence there. And then we get into the contest, and verse, what is this, 26? The priest of Baal are yelling out, Baal, answer us, but there was no sound.
Yeah.
No one answered.
How'd you do that again?
Ba-
You had like a little
Baal. Well, so I know like it's pronounced Baal sometimes. It's pronounced Baal.
Yeah, the way you held that though was
Yeah.
like you were singing it.
Well,
Baal.
in ancient writings I've seen, it's hyphenated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Baal.
to me it's two
Baal.
words,
Yeah,
right? Baal
yeah.
and Baal. And so yeah, and then there's the final time of after they've cut themselves and everything. In verse 29 it says, all afternoon they kept raving until the offering of the evening sacrifice, but there was no sound, no one answered, no one paid attention. And like I missed the opportunity to contrast that with chapter 19, when there's the sheer sound of silence, but the presence of God is he's there.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, it was
You
that was
failed
like
there.
a
That's
big fail.
Drop the ball on that one.
No one caught it though. I'm calling myself out on that one.
You saved it for the podcast.
I did. Yeah, that's the ticket. That's what it became, because my wife's like, I'm telling my wife at dinner, and she's like, just say it on the podcast. Like, you don't get it. I worked hard, and I like totally whiffed the bat on that one. And so
Why didn't you just add it? Because you're already done.
I was done.
Okay.
I mean, 4 days on it, and like I said, it was hard to write, and it was good, like, because I practiced it.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about that, and I practiced it. I'm like, this is great, and then it just happened to be like an echo in my brain, you know, later that night, where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I missed something so simple. And because the other interesting thing is, as I've read commentary after commentary on this, this is the direction I took. It is not the direction most people take that story.
Yeah.
And so it was the direction most people take it is a great direction, and we'll talk about that later, but it's not it was not this one. And so it was hard, because it really was trying to figure out. When I started, I said, this is what I want to focus on, is that whisper. And what does that really mean, and what does that really look like? So yeah,
That's cool.
All right, hit me some questions, and we can talk more about stuff I left out.
Yeah. So you mentioned, we talked about this sheer silence, the sound of sheer silence, you said, as the place where God met Elijah. And so I wondered, in our world, which is filled with noise, right? How can believers learn to discern that kind of whisper today? How do you hear that whisper when there's so much noise?
Yeah, I think it's a training exercise, in all honesty. You know, at the end, I said, take 10 minutes, right? Don't go in with an agenda. So I think sometimes we try to focus ourselves with music, and I said, don't do that, right? Like, we can't stand silence.
Oh, yeah.
And it's deafening to us.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a training exercise. I think it's just practice it. If you can't do 10 minutes, see if you can sit there for a minute and just, I don't know if empty yourself is the right way of doing it, but but do what you can. See if you could just do it, and see, you know, and you're never going to achieve full silence, but the quieter that we make our lives, the easier it is, I think, to hear God. Because think of all the distractions we put out there, right? We turn on the radio, we put on the TV, we you know, pop a AirPod into our ear and just start listening to whatever podcast, you know. And we don't take that moment to take that step back, I think. And so I think it's being intentional to start with, and taking that step back, and then training yourself on how to do that. So
how then? Okay, so so somebody gets quiet, and how do you say somebody? What do you say to somebody who said, "Is this really God speaking, or is it just my feelings, my imagination?"
That's a great question. Do you have an answer? I think we've talked about this.
I asked you the question.
I know, but we've talked about this before.
I have some thoughts.
How do we discern God's voice?
Yeah,
and I think it's a difficult thing. I think, number one, you always whatever's being said, you always measure it against Scripture.
Yeah, just line up with Scripture, number one.
Yeah, because if it doesn't, then you know it's not from God. You
Right.
know, and I think the other thing too, because there's I've heard stories or preachers talk about it where we live with guilt, and so when we're being told like, oh, you messed up, you messed up, you messed up, that's not of God either, because God forget. You know, when we ask for forgiveness, you know, if we've asked for forgiveness, so I think there's that idea of like, well, what's really being said to us, you know, and discerning. That's not a scriptural thing necessarily. It is, but it's not. It's a deeper idea and concept. In the end, I don't know what the right answer is, though. You know, I think there's things you can measure it by, and I think I think sometimes peace is, you know, especially if you're looking for something. I think peace can be an answer.
Yeah, I think the power of community. I think that's where you bring it to other believers, and you say, "Hey, this is what I'm hearing from God." And
I think if it's big,
you know, it's like, what do you think? And I think that's why we're supposed to do life together, because it's easy to get off track.
Yep.
But the Spirit together can. You know, that's the way I hear God mostly, is not through coming up down from a mountain. Like I don't trust myself enough for that, and so for me, it's
fair.
like I'll have a thought or a whatever, however you want to do it, and then I bring it to a lot of people and say, hey, what do you think about
What do you
this?
think?
How
You do.
Where's
Yep,
God
I
doing
agree.
that? Where's
Yeah.
the thing? And then just get consensus, and a lot of it's because I don't trust myself, I think, but I really don't trust my heart, and
we live by our emotions,
Yeah,
and like sometimes we feel like our emotions are an indicator of God, and they're not.
There was one time I heard God clearly. I feel I heard God. This is silly. Like not when I called to be the pastor here, not at all. I still doubt that. But, I still think that was a major mistake. But no, when the New Lenox Ministerial Association, so that's like a group of all the ministers in New Lenox get together once a month and meet.
Yeah.
And when the old guy who started it was retiring, he's told the group, "Hey, I want you guys to pray about who would lead this." And I never more sure in my life felt God say, "You need to lead this." And so I did. And then when I did, he even said afterwards, "I'm really glad you took this role and whatnot." And so I don't know why that is. I mean, it's been good so far, but I don't know why that I felt so strongly about that. But,
Yeah. I don't know. Like I think mysterious ways describes a lot of stuff, and so that's why I think it's hard, because it's you know when you know, you know, kind of thing. It's one of those things that's hard to explain exactly. It's like, what's it like being a father? You can't know it until you do it, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a hard question, but I think the important thing is definitely lining it up with Scripture.
Yeah.
And that's the first step, and then after that, it falls apart. Like it's just.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think community is a good idea on that too.
Yeah, I read yesterday in my weather group, don't neglect meeting together, as some have done. That idea that we need each other purposely. We need each other to strengthen each other and to, to
Is that Hebrews verse?
It is a Hebrews.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Worst
All right.
book of the Bible. But, all right, I got another question. So you talked about the fire of Carmel and the whisper of Mount
Horeb. Yep.
and the difference of both, and also the necessity of both. So I was thinking of churches. What do most churches emphasize? The fire or the whisper, and are we emphasizing the wrong or the right thing? Or
honestly, I think most churches emphasize the fire. I don't. What is your opinion on that? Do you have one?
I mean, we don't spend any time in silence, so it's always awkward if there's
you
silence.
didn't ask about Lincoln. You said churches in general.
Oh, I don't know about
Oh
other
no,
churches.
I mean I wasn't gonna say we don't, but
I don't know other churches. I mean, I watch a lot of the big, watch mega churches and stuff,
Yeah.
and there's a production aspect to it. There's a energy to it.
I think being in production and looking at what other churches do sometimes, I can see there's a lot spent in spectacle, especially around Christmas. Did we ever talk about what was the one church that had the flying soldiers?
the drummers, yeah. That'll be Lincoln Way next year.
But we do. I mean, to a certain extent, we do 100%.
We don't at all, even though it's not to the loudness of a Parkview or whatever, a big church. It's still. Am I allowed to do that? Call out a local church? Too late. No,
Well,
I'm gonna get fired.
no, you're.
Maybe I'll get hired. They're looking for a pastor.
They are. That's true. They're like, oh,
Who's this guy? Who's this guy causing trouble? No, I think the loudness of, we still emphasize. Again, there aren't moments of quiet. If there are moments of quiet, it gets super uncomfortable. There's been a couple of times where Daniel and I've been encouraged by this, where he'll have us sit in silence for 30 seconds or for a bit, and that is
Yeah, we've done it a couple times, but
Woo.
it's like, yes, again, because
terrible.
we don't like that. We don't.
No, keep moving, keep moving,
Yeah.
keep moving. Attention span, go, 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 go. And
It was kind of funny because like my wife said something about first service when I hit and then there was silence and then the air conditioning shut off.
that time, you're welcome. I don't know if you noticed that. Turn it off.
except for even in our sanctuary, the stupid lights
I know.
have these fans on them that constantly are going.
We
I know.
don't have
We don't
Parkview
have
money,
silence.
dude. Come on, dude.
No, it doesn't matter where you're at. Those fans are always going.
We got the Aldi lights.
Yeah.
Relax.
but it's just hard for us to find that silent point. And so like I think
So how do we emphasize it?
well I would go back to if that's something that we really feel strongly about as a church, because again, I'm an idiot standing up there on a Sunday morning, reading words off a page that I happen to write. But if we really feel like that's an important aspect of Lincoln Way, I think you incorporate it. I think it's awkward. I think it starts awkward. And I think part of the problem of why we don't necessarily do it, or other churches may not necessarily do it, is because the moment you have a guest step in and you have this really awkward moment, it may be normal to everyone standing around, but it's like, how do they end up feeling about that? And so like, do you have to explain it every single time that you do it and be like, remember, this is the part where we're sitting in silence to practice sitting in silence. I think you encourage it more outside of the church, maybe. Sunday is a Sunday. Sunday is good for community. Sunday is good for the people who don't do practices outside of Sunday, right? Like, because there are people who just come on a Sunday and then they ride that until the next Sunday, or 4 or 5 Sundays down the road, because that's the average, right? So I think it's not teaching kids. I'm sorry, I'm in a work mind this week. So it's teaching people how to do the practices every day. And so I think it's okay that we have the Mount Carmel stuff. I think that's important because it does get the attention, right? And that was, at least in my discernment, that was the purpose of Mount Carmel, is to get the attention. How do you make the change? Well, if you're not getting the person's attention, how do you make the change off of that? It's the same reason, like we talked about, like if you don't have a relationship with someone, you're not going to influence them to do what's right. I don't know. You just keep shaking your head. Where am I wrong?
I'm sitting in silence.
Oh, okay.
I haven't said a word for a minute.
I know, that was impressive.
That was really hard. The whole time, like, don't talk. No, I think I disagree. I kind of push back a little bit on the new person feeling awkward. I don't know. And I know we want to be very conscientious of guests and all that, of course. But also, like, if you're coming to a church, if you're coming to a holy place, it's going to be a little awkward because it's totally different than the world. We shouldn't mimic the world because we're not. I mean, we are. There's an element of like we do sing and. I mean, we stand and sing songs towards a screen. Where else in the world do you do that?
Right.
No, I mean, honestly.
Right.
We do the Pledge of Allegiance at a baseball game. Karaoke. But I mean, we're honestly, like,
right.
People raise their hand. I mean, it's already weird. You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah.
But
You're right.
and I do appreciate the seeker sensitive, however you want to word that, but the going after those that are 100%. But when they step in on a Sunday morning, this is a holy place and a holy time.
True.
And there's
That's
a little
true.
bit of like a...
There is an oddity to what we do.
And not to embrace, we're not carrying snakes around or, doing weird stuff like that.
Oh, now you're calling them out. Okay.
Yeah, I'm burning all the churches down. So, okay, my last question. My last question has to do with spiritual failure and exhaustion in leadership.
Okay.
Because you got Elijah who has this huge mountaintop moment, and then this woman comes along and just says a couple words at him and breaks him down, and he goes and runs away. And then God feeds him and tells him to sleep and all that. And I wonder, how does that reshape our understanding of spiritual failure or exhaustion? Maybe more, not spiritual failure, but exhaustion in leadership. Like, how does that, does that reshape our, and how so?
I hope so. Mm-hmm. In fact, that is the common theme of that entire chapter. Like, if you go and you look up sermons, it's almost entirely about Elijah being a ministerial person who has essentially been a failure, and then that God steps in for that purpose, right? Like, Alistair Begg, who's like one of my all-time favorite pastors to listen to, mainly because he's Scottish and I just love his
Yeah,
accent.
yeah.
And but he's so insightful and he's a smart man. And I was disappointed to find out he retired this year. But he did a whole sermon. He did a message. I don't remember if it was preaching it to a bunch. It sounded like a bunch of pastors is who he was talking to. But he talked about a couple different things. He said, number one, like one time he was called to do a conference early on in his career before anyone knew who he really was, and they said you have to 2 years out. They're like, you have to pick 2 topics and let us know, and then you'll talk about them. When you get there. And I forget what he said the first topic was, but the second one was on wariness in ministry. And he's like, it was standing room only.
Yeah,
nobody knew who I was from Adam. But because it was a ministerial conference, like every single minister's wife, they were in there listening to it just because of the topic. So it's a reality when it comes to ministering, and this is something I want to address. So practice your silence right now, because I don't want you to interrupt what I'm going to say here. But to everyone who's listening, listen, I preached 5 times this summer. None of them were back to back. I had at least a week, 2 weeks between every sermon I had. Steve does this pretty much every single week. He has to prepare a sermon. He has to get up and preach it on Sunday, and then everything else that Steve does in this building. And so it's writing 5 sermons with 2 weeks in between for most of them was a difficult job, and I didn't have to do all the extras. And so, I know like there's a pastor appreciation month and everything like that, but you really need to appreciate your pastor. And if you're outside of my church and you're outside of Lincoln Way and you're listening to this, you need to appreciate your pastor, because spiritual burnout's a really big thing. Another thing Alistair B said was there was one sermon he gave Sunday, and a lady came by and like gave him a note, and he put it in his coat pocket, and he didn't read it till he got out in the car, and it just like ripped him up and down, left and right, like, and everything, how he was wrong about everything he said. And then later that night, they still practice evening worship, and he's like, they were doing these prayer groups, and he said another lady in there gave him a Bible verse, and I wish I could remember what it was, but handed it to him, and it was an encouraging Bible verse, and she's like, I don't know why. She's like, I was just kind of felt like I needed to give this to you, and he's like, you need enough of those notes on one side to keep you humble, but you need enough of the notes on the other side to keep you sane.
Yeah.
And so anyways, my thing is appreciate Steve. Just tell him that he's doing good. It's fine. Rip him up every once in a while when he's wrong. You should.
I would say pray for me. I think so. One thing I learned in my other group I do, we were reading, and Paul has a line where he says, pray for us so that we can maintain a clear conscience and work. Mm-hmm. And that idea of I never ask for prayer, because first of all, it seems you're weak, because what are you doing ask for prayer? But then Paul asked for prayer, so what am I doing? But then also it robs other people of being part of this community. You know what I mean? Like, as I pray for you, pray for me. And so I do covet those prayers and everything. And but my job on the flip side though, my job isn't harder than anyone else's job. Everyone has. You're a teacher. You have hard days.
Yes, you're right. You and I have comparable positions.
If I were to go in and work a week or 3 weeks in your job, I would lose. So I think you get into a rhythm. Yes, it is a challenge.
Well, there's heartbreak moments in your job. There's heartbreak moments in my job.
Yeah.
There's not as much, I think, and maybe that's a survivorship bias. Mm-hmm. But when you deal with people on a regular basis, and you deal with people emotionally on a regular basis, it wears on you. Yeah. You need that, and so prayer is definitely a thing. Yeah. Yes, maybe not praise, but prayer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, tell me I do a good job. That's cool. But I think it's fun. It's fun. There's a joke like, I take this book and every week write 4,500 new words about it. Like
it's a 2,000-year-old book. I know.
Here we go. What are we going to say now about the Bible? But that's where the beauty, I think, where I meet God is in that blank page and in the scripture coming alive. And when I get excited about something, my hope is it comes across to others as well. Because honestly, a lot of it's ministering to me first before I give it to anybody else. And so,
for sure. Things in my life it was when I practiced. This was there was parts of the sermon that were hard to say out loud. Like, and so yeah, it.
So then I guess the question is, how can this church be a place where that kind of grace is extended to the weary? So where a person can quote unquote fail and still be, come on, it's all right. Shake it off. Let's go. You know?
So I think sometimes that's a difficult task in, when it's internal. And what I mean by that is, I always call us a family. If you belong to this church, you're members of a family, and sometimes we have a difficult time extending grace to people of our own that we're close to.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the hardest people to extend grace to.
Yep.
And so I think it's being conscious of that. I think it's remembering that, hey, gosh, I can't remember where it's at in the Bible, but it's like, you have to forgive other people because you were forgiven, right?
Yeah,
and so understanding that aspect of it, that we're humans. Like I was trying to teach my daughter who's in her teens, you should never assign malice to interactions with another Christian.
Yeah.
Like that should never be your first go-to.
I would say that to almost anybody.
Well, I agree. No, I agree. But you don't know. Like,
No, yeah.
There's another thing. Like, there's never assign malice where you can assign being a moron. Like, just someone messing up. But I think specifically with Christians, because we're less likely to offer grace to other Christians, I think it's a reminder for that.
Yeah.
Because outside of 100%, like, don't ever assume anyone's intent is evil, but as a Christian and talking to other Christians, we, for some reason, hold each other accountable, and we should, right?
Yeah.
But there's also we are screwed up, and so we're going to screw up. And so never. So when it comes to someone messing up in the church and assigning grace to them, I think that's important. I think the other side, and it speaks to you a little bit in your journey here, is I've always, as long as I've been on the elder board, one thing I've learned about us as a church I never had to think about when I was just being a member was I look at Lincoln Way as a hospital. And I don't know why I feel like that's something we're good at. And so when people who are hurt or have been injured by other churches walk into our doors, we're, for some reason, and through God's providence or whatever it is, we are a hospital for those people, and give them the opportunity to heal. And I think your story speaks to that.
I think
I
so.
hope we're still that, looking from the outside, because it's hard to know when someone's like really, really injured and really, really hurt, because they're going to hide in the back, just like you tell your story, right?
Oh yeah.
And so until we figure out where their story is and where they came from, and so I think we're really good at extending grace in that manner.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that's all the questions I have.
That's all you
Do
have?
you want to tell them about your first vote as an elder when you voted not to have me be the
No,
pastor?
because
not to have me be the pastor.
That was not my first vote. That was
his most important vote.
that was a vote. I will admit that was not my first vote. Since you brought it up and you know the answer. I wasn't actually on the board when I did that.
Yep. Now he is. See what happens?
Yeah.
Bring your enemies closer.
I did. I said no. You know what? No, I was very deliberate about that because I had been on for 3 years and it was rough because it was a rough 3 years.
Yeah.
And then I went off to head the hiring committee for you.
Yeah.
And then my wanting to go back on the board right away was me digging my heels in against myself. Like me saying I need to prove that I was wrong. And I need to go in. I need to support Steve 100%. No, I'm serious. I'm not joking. And I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you why I did that. Because Mark told me like now is the time that he needs the support. And so because Mark said that, I said I need to get it back in, and I need to support him 100%. Yeah. And I apologize to you anyways.
No, you don't apologize. No, I think that's the beauty of this though. Is like,
but I did. I came to you later. I said, as much as I voted against you. I was wrong.
And all the people I
was
organized. No, I know. That was a long time ago.
It was. And I was wrong.
And the funny
I
thing,
will say here.
I think you were right. So.
We still had our ups and downs since then, but
Yeah, I think so.
I think early on, I think we've gotten out of them now. I think we've gotten out of that funk of you've learned the position better, and I
think so.
I think-
I'm still learning, and I screwed up.
you are.
and-
Oh no, I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
I think there were a few times I came to you early on, and we did not end that conversation well.
I don't remember though. I'm have a bad memory.
There
so-
was a book we
Don't
read.
bring it up.
Oh, okay.
Man, this guy kicking dirt. Let's
All right.
talk about Parkview. All right, what else you got? That's all the questions I got.
A couple things I did leave out that I don't know if they were important or not, so we can kind of talk about them. I guess I side mentioned it, but after the contest on Carmel and Elijah wins, or God wins, however you want to look at that, he slaughters the priest of Baal. Like, he takes him like down into a valley and literally like kills them all with the sword,
Yeah.
which is where Jezebel's thing comes from. But I kind of left it out because while it's important to the story, it's not important to the story it wasn't important to the message that I was giving, right?
Sure.
And so it's an interesting question to ask about justice,
Mm-hmm.
because that seems to be a topic that came around those parts of the story.
Yeah.
Was how is it okay for Elijah to do that, but it wasn't fine for Jezebel to be killing the prophets of Yahweh?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic. We don't have to get into it too deep, but it was something that I thought was interesting, but I didn't want to get into. Another thing, I mentioned Obadiah. What I didn't tell you about Obadiah was he had hid $1,000, not dollars, Yahweh, prophets of Yahweh,
Oh.
and never told anyone.
yeah.
But the cool part was he was like feeding them and giving them water during this drought too.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there was always this dynamic, because we didn't really talk about the widow either.
Yeah.
But the widow's Phoenician. She's not a worshiper of Yahweh, but Elijah goes to her and he's like, give me some bread, or give me some water, and then make me some bread. And she's like down to her last jar of flour,
Yeah.
and no oil, but she does it anyways without really questioning.
Yeah.
And but then you get to this follower of Yahweh who's like, but if I go tell Ahab and you're not here when I get back, he's going to kill me, and I don't really want that to happen. And so there's this like dynamic between the two. But I think Obadiah is still being faithful to Yahweh. I think the questioning is okay in
I
that
would say
regard. But some people, say, oh well, this is greater faith than Obadiah. It's not, but when you realize Obadiah has been doing everything he's doing, I think he's looking out for the prophets that he's hidden.
Yeah.
He's like, look, I don't want to screw up because but he didn't tell Elijah why he didn't want to screw up.
Yeah.
And so then there's these questions of, is it lies of omission from him, that he's hiding these, and when's that things like that okay? And so there are so many stories when it comes to Elijah that are so deep and meaning. Like it's so funny because it's only a few chapters really, and there's just so much stuff that's going on there. What happened to the prophets of Asherah? We're told that he said to call them all, and only the prophets of Baal are mentioned after that point. And so that's a big question mark in the Bible. We don't know really what happened.
I mean, they missed the call. They were away.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. They're still eating at Jezebel's table, I guess. I don't know.
Get it? They called though. They missed the call. Yeah. They didn't have call waiting.
The rain does come back. The drought ends, right? And so that's kind of an interesting story because like there's a servant that's working with Elijah, and he keeps sending him off like, what do you see? What do you see? And he prays hard for that. Like, the prayer for the fire was easy. The prayer for the rain was hard. Like there's 7 times that he has to pray for it.
And what's neat about that is we actually got the great 2000 band PFR from that. Pray for Rain.
Is that where it comes from?
Where else would it come from?
I don't know. Well, like 21 Pilots comes from
Remember
Arthur Miller
PFR
plays.
is like the flood song. Did they sing that? They sing that.
Was that PFR?
Or was that Jars of Clay?
That was Jars of Clay.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry. But Jars of Clay is that's actually
not,
sorry. I was trying. I was trying there.
You can try to connect Jesus to Elijah. Oh, on another mountain.
Well, actually, now that you say that, so you introduced me to this, and then it's been like a tick in my brain.
Oh,
since
you're gonna go
then.
there?
Yeah, I want to go there because I think it's interesting. So,
right.
so I preached about Mount Horeb twice.
So first of all, this is just a stupid thought, and there's no biblical.
There's no biblical, and no scholar really supports this whatsoever. But it's a kind of fun thought.
Steve has that thought.
but hold on. There's a part I didn't. You never looked up, and I did. And so, okay. So we talked about Moses, and so
I guess we should probably what's the major thought, right?
the major thought is that when Christ undergoes his transfiguration,
Right in the New Testament.
in the New Testament, he's met on one side with the Moses and the other side with Elijah.
Yes.
And there's big theological implications to that. The idea is that Moses is giving the law over to Christ, and that Elijah is giving prophecy over
the
to
law,
Christ.
law and the
right?
prophets.
And so this is where everything culminates into Christ during this point.
My theory.
So here's the fun part: is that you have Moses on Mount Horeb or
Yep.
Mount Sinai,
Sure.
right? There, it's double named, and he's hanging out there with God, and he's getting the Ten Commandments
Yep.
and everything like that. You have Elijah goes to Mount Horeb, and
Yep.
he communicates with God
Uh-oh.
during that.
Here we
yeah,
go.
here we go. And so it's kind of fun. The question is, we don't really know the mountain that Christ went to. All we know is the verse before, and it says 6 days later.
Right.
And so wherever he goes is 6 days later away, or however you want to do that. If you take a cart from where he was, I think in Capernaum or something like that, down to where Mount Horeb is, it's about a 6-day journey.
There you go.
And so, again, this is way out there. There's not a scholar I could find that supported this. Actually, that's not true. There are a couple who
And Joe Rogan.
suggested to it. But how cool would it be if Christ in his time goes to Mount Horeb with 3 of his disciples? Right?
I'm saying it happens at the same time. It's a space-time thing.
Oh, it is a space-time thing, but he has to be on Mount Horeb at the same time. Like they're all on Mount
They're all
Horeb.
so when Elijah's
Yes.
meeting and Moses meet and Christ, it's all happened at the same time on different timelines.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the idea. I think it was the very coolest idea ever because then
Dumbest thought.
the disciples are like, we were going to build huts to everyone
Yeah.
and like hang out here all day.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun connecting point. We don't know where Christ does his
No.
transfiguration, so it's kind of hard.
And this is why I don't hear from God directly.
This is why he's not working for Parkview.
What do you think about this space-time?
Well, there's a cool idea about time and
It's a
the,
fun
and the
thought.
Jewish.
It's a fun
It
thought.
is a fun thought.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Okay. All right. 2 more things.
All right.
7. So I just said Elijah's story doesn't end there, right?
Right.
He's still not happy, but at least he recognizes God's there again. And God actually asks him the same question he asked him before. And this is how you know Elijah's really still not happy, is because he gives word for word the same response. Like, I am the only one left on the
Yeah.
end. So he's still depressed at this point, but at least he's willing to recognize God is in the picture.
Right.
So God still takes mercy and pity on him because he's like, you have emptied yourself of everything and you've gone through 3 hard years here. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to get a new priest. We're going to get you an apprentice. And you need to know there are 7,000 faithful people to me still. The 7,000 remnant that is in Israel still. And like when you're there and you're like, I am the only one left.
Yeah.
Like how sometimes I think we get these pity parties and we feel like that. And then all of a sudden to find out there's a huge crowd there, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is Newsies.
Okay.
And so there's at the end of the movie, it's like there's this big strike of the newsboys in the 1900s, and
Yeah, the Newsboys, big strike.
yeah, it was huge. It was huge, actually. It is, and
especially
so
now, with
in the
Michael Tate did.
yeah, so
That's why it's your favorite movie.
yeah. So, anyways, at the end, there's like 3 of them there standing in this square,
Yeah.
and they're like they were trying to get the news out to all these children laborers that were being used in the early 1900s, and hoping that banding them all together and bring them in, but they're just there and they're by themselves. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the movie, like the streets are just flowing with kids walking into this point. It's like
Michael Tate's favorite movie. At that point.
But the idea is like when you think you're all alone, and like how much more powerful it is when you know that other people are there and are backing you, and so yeah, so that was really cool. And then the last thing really is we didn't talk about Elisha.
Yeah.
And it was hard to fit everything in. It
I
would have
know.
been very hard to put Elisha in. So Elisha is Elijah's successor.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the fun. There's a lot of fun stories
Yeah.
about Elisha. One of my favorite is like there's some kids that are like harassing him as he's walking down
he's
the
bald.
path because he's bald.
Yeah.
And again, the Bible is the funniest book on the planet.
Yeah.
And so he's walking down the street. He's walking down the road. There's some kids harassing him because he's bald, and he's 6 bears on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a funny story.
Yeah, unless you're the kids.
Yeah, except for the kids, 'cause they get mauled to death. But
Just making a joke. Gosh.
but anyways, what's beautiful about Elisha is that when Elijah gets called up into heaven, whatever that looks like, 'cause it's a very Enoch-y moment.
Yep.
So we don't really know and understand fully what's going on there. But Elisha says, I want to be twice as good as Elijah.
Yeah.
And the cool part is if you read all the miracles that Elijah performs, Elisha's are exactly double
Wow. That's awesome.
that are recorded. And so there's a really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You should have said tripled. Missed opportunity there.
Oh. Sure, I guess. Why would I have said tripled?
No, I'm saying he should have said triple.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah.
He should have said, "Hey,
he screwed that up."
Yeah,
I
I
guess.
could have done triple. Not you.
I thought you were telling me to say tripled. Like
No.
that made no sense in my
No,
brain.
no.
I've been in trainings all day long, so my brain is.
I get it. I get it.
down. So yeah, I mean,
It was fun.
it was fun. I again, it's my favorite, one of my favorite stories. So
Yep.
yeah,
It was good.
I know what time it is though.
You know what time it is? It's time. Hold on. Oh yeah. Let's go.
In the ancient scrolls, a name appears so sleek. Melchizedek.
All right.
Oh, that
been
was
cutting that
way
short.
too short. Yeah,
I know.
you
You need more
really
time?
dropped that one down there.
Look, I've heard that song for 10 weeks now. So
Yeah, I think again, yeah, because we're coming to the end here. I'm really stretching on some of these. So, so
his
now I'm
name
trying to
starts
tie.
with an M.
Yeah, it's spelled. Maybe this will help you with pronunciation. His name is spelled M-E-L. You know, again, that Melchizedek being the priest, right? There's no fanfare for him.
Yeah.
Is another thing too, right? And so it's a kind of interesting story because when we look at kings and priests and everything like that having these big fanfares normally associated with them, and again the fire from God, you know, there's all this fanfare, and then there's these quiet things, and if Melchizedek is the Christ-like figure before Christ, it's interesting that you have the quietness of Christ,
Yeah,
right, and the quietness of Melchizedek in terms of that, and so there's this kind of really cool idea and tie-in between that there's no fanfare, there's no heavy rituals, there's nothing really. It's like, here's some bread and wine. Oh, here's a tenth of all my treasure, and,
Yeah.
that's about, you know,
That's awesome.
that's all we got. So not
Cool.
really, but appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah, no problem. We're struggling with the Melchizedek moment.
I thought we could pull 10. It's
got
getting
2
hard.
more.
I got 2 more. I know.
Create something.
I'll put something better together for next 2.
All right, next week,
Yeah, you're on.
I'm back up. Put me in, coach.
I'm glad.
Me too. I'm excited to speak. I'm doing David and Goliath, the most well-known story probably in the Bible, and probably more than Noah, maybe.
I would argue that because we use it as
All
a
the time, sports, you know. David and Goliath.
100%.
And it's fun because the story has nothing to do with Goliath, and so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. There's also a really neat thing, and I don't know if this will make. Well, I'll just say it now. The enemies of God back then did not believe God could be defeated in a valley, that he was on the mountain. In fact, their prophets say he's the Lord of the mountains, but not the valleys. And so Goliath meets him in a valley because they're like, oh, we can beat him in the valley, which is kind of a cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing. I don't know if that'll
That
go
is
in the
fun.
sermon or not, but there's
I,
a lot of fun things. Like there's a lot of neat things with the sermon, and
That's all.
I'm
I'm looking
excited.
forward to it. What's our last one's Esther? Because you took
Esther.
mine.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So it's funny that you said sports because like I had this whole skit written up for Elijah and doing like the battle between him.
Oh,
and the
yeah, you
prophets
said,
of Baal.
yeah.
Like it was a boxing match.
Yeah.
Like
hand on this corner, come on.
but that didn't make it.
I didn't make it. I didn't make it.
Thank goodness it didn't
Yeah.
make it. But I did say it'd be fun to film, so we might have to put something together at some point.
No, we won't. But okay. Hey, speaking of fun to film and being looking good on
yeah,
TV,
I was gonna call out your
Look at
shirt
this.
here. So some of our swag came in.
not for Sunday morning shirt.
Yeah.
I wore this today to the doctor, and he said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a podcast."
And he said,
I didn't tell him I was on or anything.
yeah. And what did he say after
He's like,
that?
"Oh, okay." He's like, "The
Okay.
font reminds me of a '90s cartoon."
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, early 2000s.
Thanks
I
a
like
lot. Yeah.
it.
Anyways, you can get your shirt if you go to our website. I think there's a link for the shirt. It's somewhere. You can just, I don't know how to find it, but I think if you go to the church website and there's a drop down, there's
Like a merch something.
Yeah,
and
but
then you have
there'll
to
be a
do
direct
drop
link.
down.
There'll be a direct link in the YouTube video, and I think in our
Put it on
podcast
our
site, too.
podcast site too, I think.
I think
If
it's
we
there.
don't-
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
yeah.
so. But you can get a shirt. We don't make any money off them.
Nope.
We
I
have
got
two
one coming.
styles.
Yeah, I got one coming in. Hopefully it'll be here soon.
Yep. I'm excited. So, all right. So that's the shirts. That was next week. Last week.
Yep.
That's all I got.
I'm excited.
Me too.
I really am.
I can tell.
Thanks everyone for listening. Smash that like button. Subscribe. Tell your friends.
With the mic in hand, digging through truths that don't quite land. The bits and pieces that didn't get said, from the pulpit to the podcast instead. Not for Sunday mornings, no halos here. We're breaking it down with a laugh and a cheer. Knowledge nuggets flying wild and free. Welcome to the chaos, grab your coffee.